Hello and welcome back to the Raptors Report podcast. I am your host, Julian. Joined alongside me as always is Steve. We are back. We took a hiatus last week, but we are back. Back ready to talk about the Raptors because there is some real news. That's right. There is some actual stuff to talk about. And we are here to share it with you because Media Day just happened. And there are a couple of stories. A lot of the time, Media Day isn't always the most insightful. They don't always talk about the most interesting stuff, but we have managed to pick through all of the interviews that were done. We found some interesting talking points that we can share with you. Steve, welcome back. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I am super pumped because this is kind of like the first domino that falls in the Raptor season, really. Media Day, getting all of the ducks in a row. The team is ready to talk and, set expectations for the season. That's really what it's all about, is setting and managing expectations. And one thing that I noticed is there's kind of a disconnect, at least, between the front office and what they're saying to the media and what some of the players are saying to the media, which I found pretty interesting. So we're going to break down for you. We're going to show you some clips from the press conferences that were put out. One, obviously, Bobby Webster, who delivered a press conference prior to Media Day, and he had a couple of interesting tidbits. And then we will do all of the interviews that happened today. Darko Rajakovic. We're not going to go into all of the player interviews because, as Steve and I were speaking beforehand, a lot of the players will talk about kind of what they've developed, what they've been doing in the off season, and that kind of stuff is interesting, but it's not newsworthy, in my opinion. We're going to be trying to find the stuff that actually kind of moves the needle, that's really interesting, that's kind of fun to think about. And why don't we start with the Bobby Webster press conference? What did you make of the Bobby Webster press conference?
It's a bit of a different look than we're used to. Typically it's been Masai, but I liked it. He seems pretty straight to the point, and that he's not kind of talking around the point. So far he seems pretty direct, and I'm liking that kind of new style of leadership, because Masai would kind of wax poetic and it'd be very kind of inspiring, whatever, but you wanted more meat and potatoes out of it, and I think that's kind of what Bobby gave.
Yeah, I can feel that, although there were certain things that I felt he was kind of a bit cagey about. Not to contradict you, but I found there were certain points where I felt like he should have been a bit more headstrong. I think he should have really gone for it,
right?
And been a bit more confident. Whereas Masai Ujiri was always, it seemed like he had his heart on his sleeve. Obviously, he could spin a really good story and make you kind of believe what he was thinking. But with Bobby Webster, it's more of a kind of a slick package where he's more, I think, kind of, I don't want to make this sound derogatory, but more of an executive, like a C-suite guy who is very analytical and has his P's and Q's all lined up and knows the answer to every question before it's even uttered, etc. So I found some of the answers to the questions. I wanted him to be bolder, honestly.
Right. Okay.
So we'll get into that. Why don't we pull this up here, because I've got some clips or just timestamps here. So why don't I play here for you what I'm talking about. So he gets a question. Let's make sure it's on normal speed here, and the audio levels are okay.
What are your expectations, and what would a successful season for this team look like to you?
So the question was, let me just pause that really quickly. Crank the volume up. What would a successful season look like to you? What are your expectations? What would a successful season look like to you?
I think listen, Darko's great at this. Win the day, 1% better, no finish line. I think you have to build a team that way. If you have a specific goal in mind, a specific win where you want to enter. I just don't know if that's sort of the best way to build, especially a young group. These guys, they're sort of, when they lock in, that day-to-day improvement is what ends up resulting in, being in the playoffs or being in the play-in. We won 30 games last year, so I don't think there's any sort of illusions of, expectations of this number of wins or this playoff seed. But I truly we'll see. You'll see in training camp, you'll see as preseason involves. We feel like the summer's been incredible for these guys. Brandon's healthy. We have a starting group that we really haven't ever seen play together. And Darko's in year 3, so I think we have a lot of things in our favor, a lot of things that suggest we'll be competitive. But we haven't put that full season together yet. And I think that's the challenge for this group is, from the first game there at Atlanta, can they be competitive? Can they turn back? Can they fly back around? Can they play Friday night? Can they play Saturday night? Can you do that on a consistent basis? And then we can have the conversation of where do we think this team will be, or where do we think this team can be at the end of the season.
Okay, so essentially he's saying we won 30 games last season, so I don't know if it's a good idea to be talking about what playoff seed we're going to be doing. And then he kind of puts the team a little bit at arm's length, I noticed, where he kind of specifically talked about how they are going to have to kind of show that they can win on the road. They got to show that they are going to be able to, play hard when the chips are down and prove that they're capable of winning games, which is an interesting framing. I think that is obviously he is trying to manage expectations. He's saying, listen, we're coming from a bad season and we're looking to make our mark here and we're trying to move forward, but you have to be, patient essentially. And he's all leaving the door open for evaluation, right? So what do you think my reading there is a good one? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think especially in those setting the expectations, and it makes a lot of sense to me. He might not even just be speaking to fans, but also to the guys that just gave him his new position of, okay, so I'm not going to tell you that we're going to go win the world and then disappoint you. Give us a moment to breathe here as we figure this out, kind of thing, right? So it could be more directly to the people above where it's like, all right, this is the expectations that we can likely meet, instead of what I was talking about weeks ago of reality is they've added Ingram and they've added Colin Murray-Boyles, 2 players who can definitely add a lot of wins and make you a lot better of a team. But to think that a team that is going to be playing 4 or 5 sophomores, a couple rookies, really only have 1 or 2 players over the age of 30, it's like you got to also bring your expectations in a little bit and go, okay, is this really a team that's built to have any kind of playoff run yet? Maybe we need to relax for a second, and maybe that's kind of what Bobby's doing as well.
Absolutely. As I said, I wanted, I'm very selfish. I just want him to say what I'm thinking, which is yeah, we're going to go for the playoffs, but I understand what you're saying. So let's cut back here, find another timestamp that I found kind of interesting. Okay.
Come to this year.
Continue to lead. I think he's growing up. Obviously, had a baby.
Let me get the question in there so that we can hear what the question was.
Play. So yeah, we're excited to see him.
What's your message been to Scotty this offseason, and what are your expectations for him coming to this year?
Continue to lead. I think he's growing up. Obviously, had a baby, so everybody grows up when you have a kid. I think the baselines for Scotty, just met with him yesterday, are his defense, his energy, his rebounding, keeping the team together, right? The starting unit will be interesting to see how they mesh. The scoring, I think, comes, it can come easily for him when he, gets early seals, when he attacks the rim, when he gets to the free throw line. So you don't want to put so much pressure on his scoring. It's sort of all the other stuff. And I think that's a really high floor for Scotty.
How much are...
Okay. Interesting. I found this pretty interesting. So when asked about the Scotty Barnes, he essentially says leadership, playmaking, defense, all of the things like the sort of the peripheral skills around a player, that you hope to have in a star player, But then he really, I feel, takes the scoring element and really downplays it and says it's not about scoring, and here are the ways that he can make it easier for himself to score. So obviously I'm reading into this, but when you listen to people talk, they'll tell you what they're thinking subtly. And in my opinion, I think that what he is trying to say is that Scotty Barnes is he expects Scotty Barnes as in the newer offense to take a step back in terms of scoring. What do you read into that? Is that what you think?
Yeah, that's very much, and like a lot of people I think kind of had that takeaway too of, okay, don't worry about scoring or stuff anymore. But I think taking a step back, okay, we've got Ingram here, we've got these other options, and stick to what you're good at. It sounds like the things that he's telling him to focus on are things that he's already good at, right? And after a year of kind of experimenting, of seeing the limits of things that he can and can't do, it's like, okay, now you could really help our team win if you just do these things that you're actually really awesome at. I think that, like, when you watch other players like Evan Mobley and stuff play, their buckets seem to come a lot easier than Scotty's,
Right.
because of they're in the dunker spot, they're playing with talented guards, they're getting like Evan Mobley added a lot to his game. He's not being just like spoon fed, but
He
their
was
bucket-
earlier in his career, right?
Exactly,
so,
right.
And so he was starting. He was allowed to crawl, and now he's walking, and obviously what you're saying is like he's not being asked to do all these guard like things. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And like for Scotty, it's like you're just watching him and you're like, he has to put so much effort to get to the rack, to this, to that, to that, and then he's got to match that effort on the defensive end, and they're maybe saying, okay, get your points a bit easier, don't focus on taking it in an ISO, maybe just hang around in the dunker spot, and you can keep that energy to lead the defense, to be that, like, and still be a very important winning player.
Right. And even maybe like be a screener, a roller, a table setter, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what I felt like listening to this. Bobby Webster's very slick and subtle, and he has a very, natural way of speaking. And he's not going to come out and say like, listen, Scotty Barnes isn't going to get as many shots as he did last season. But when you listen to him speak, that's kind of the subtext that I'm reading, like reading between the lines. It really sounds like when you praise somebody for this one thing, and he's really good at blah, 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 blah. And then you give, measured praise about the thing that maybe you're not as confident in, right? You're saying like, here's the thing I expect, and here's the other thing that maybe he's not going to be able to do as much. So that's my tea leaf reading there. And I thought that was kind of interesting because he did talk about Scotty, and obviously Scotty, the most important or second most important player on the team, depending on how well Brandon Ingram, contributes this season. So that's another timestamp. Let's find our next one here. Okay, so this one is we get to hear his thoughts on Colin Murray-Boyles, which I thought was interesting. I believe he's discussed Colin Murray-Boyles before, but I found it kind of interesting hearing him talk about Colin and what he brings to the table.
We'll play ahead of them. You may not have to play a lot. Is that a good situation for rookies?
I think for sure. I think him,
So that's Doug Smith. You might not have heard that. It was a little garbled, but he was essentially saying Colin Murray-Boyles, he may not play much because he's a rookie. Is that a good situation for like a rookie to be in? And so this is his response.
very rarely do you see a rookie come in and impact the game in a positive way. I think the one area he can do, and is probably the best way for rookies, is on the defensive end. He's incredibly disruptive defensively, and we've seen that here in September. You saw it in college, you saw it in summer league. So I think that probably would be the incentive for the coaches to put him in the game. But he's got a long ways to go. I think he's, still got a 20-year-old body. He's still getting used to, he hasn't even been on a road trip yet in the NBA. But I think, you'll see on the defensive end as well here where he'll really make his impact, and I think where he could play right away.
He said you need to see.
Okay, So those are his thoughts on Colin Murray-Boyles. Basically saying like Doug, I think, old school kind of guy. He thinks. I mean, there's a couple ways to think about it. A lot of the time, as a rookie, you got to earn your stripes. You got to come in, put on the hard hat and do the role player stuff. And he was kind of asking Bobby, like, do you agree with that? Do you think that not playing a ton as a rookie is going to be good for him? And Bobby basically says, yeah, but here are the things that I expect him to bring. And obviously the first thing that he mentions is the defensive impact. He kind of sees the same thing we do.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting little tidbit there about Colin Murray-Boyles.
And
yeah.
Like just along with that, like I can see him actually, just based off his defensive effort alone, I can see him slowly starting to jump players in the rotation. And like a player goes down, a player gets injured, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple of Colin starts.
Yeah.
Because I think the Raptors have just always been willing to kind of give those chances to young guys. And Bobby seems patient but optimistic about the players that he's drafted, right? Like he definitely sees roles for them as part of winning teams because of that two-way. Talking about Jacoby, talking about him. And I think he's willing to put them in those opportunities for that. So, yeah, like I wouldn't be so quick to think that his minutes will be small as Doug is kind of
Insinuating.
expecting.
Yeah, and I mean, like a bench roll can be small, it can be big. I'm expecting something like 15 to 20 minutes from Colin Murray-Boyles, and I think he's going to impress. So I think if he starts off on the low end, I think that over time he'll earn those minutes as he gets the trust of the the front office and the coaching staff. So that was kind of an interesting little bit there. Oh, right. Okay. Let's see here. The next timestamp. So 10 minutes.
I think with RJ, we're,
you mentioned Brandon's importance as a scorer. How do you see his role on the team going forward, and what are his expectations like?
I think with RJ, we're, talked a lot about his efficiency. And so his catch and shoot continue to improve, getting to the free throw line. Don't expect him to see as many double teams, as much, sort of attention. So now he gets to attack some closeouts on the weak side. And I think all the things he's really good at, getting to the rim, catch and shoot. So I think the more you see that and the more efficient he is, the more valuable he'll be. And then listen, we push him on the other end too for defense and rebounding, and he knows that. So
you had a really
Okay, so they asked him about RJ Barrett, and he basically said, yeah, we are hoping that he's going to be more efficient. And that's something that we've discussed, you and I, Steve, is the efficiency. In his first season with the Raptors, he was very efficient, very good going to the basket. His three-point shot came around. The free throw shooting obviously was not, it hasn't been good since he put the jersey on. With that said, I think that like getting a peek into Bobby Webster's head here is that with other players like Brandon Ingram, he was more effusive in his praise. So he was more like, I didn't clip it, but in this interview, he called Brandon Ingram a hooper's hooper.
Yeah.
He said basically, listen, this guy has a ton of talent, and he is going to be the guy. He's going to be given the ball and multiple opportunities to score, create, all of that kind of stuff. Whereas with RJ, you hear him talking, and he says, he mentions kind of what they're looking for from him, which is efficient shots, which is catch and shoot. Notice what he said, catch and shoot, okay, and attacking closeouts.
Yeah.
Those are two things that you do off of the ball.
Yep.
So he is mentioning how he's going to fit with Brandon Ingram, and essentially he's saying like Brandon Ingram is going to be above him in the pecking order. He is going to draw more attention with the ball in his hands, and as a result, he thinks that RJ is going to be more efficient due to catch and shoot, getting his defender on the back foot and being able to attack on closeouts. So that's what I was thinking, is that like, okay, well, here's what Bobby's saying. RJ is taking a step back in terms of creation. He is going to be used as an off-ball player more often this season. Do you think that's a fair reading?
I think definitely. And I think also he hit on that they've been, basically trying to instill more defense into RJ.
Right.
A lot of the sound bites kind of always circle back to that. And they said it last year, and he said it as, oh, I know it's something I need to work on. And it basically, yeah, like it does sound like him compared to the way Bobby speaks about him compared to the other players, it very much sounds of an audition for the team. It's, can you scale yourself down into this off-ball role and add some more defense to your game if you want to stay in the starting lineup, if you want to stay on this team? Can you scale down, right? And because there are other players on the roster who are maybe closer to that scaled down version already, and they're just maybe going to give RJ that chance of, okay, can you fit into this system? And for RJ's credit, it sounds like he's just very coachable and very open ears to this kind of thing. So hopefully it's not like any tension if that's the case.
Yeah, I actually have kind of like a companion piece here to that statement. I'll just line it up here because I didn't clip it, but I'll just bring it up right now. I'll put it, hold on, let's make sure that I have all the stuff. We're doing some live editing right now. So I actually have the timestamp here, but I didn't put it up because the rest of the interview was not, press conference wasn't that exciting, but RJ actually talks about this, what you were just talking about, what Bobby was just talking about. So let me just find the timestamp here. Okay.
Mind and my body right, and I was thankful. Up in terms of was.
Okay, here we go.
And I was thankful for it, but I'm kind of itching to get back now.
Yeah, and the second question was, are there any misconceptions about your game that you're looking to clear up in terms of proving? You just make the joke about the passing there too, but even on the defensive end, for example.
I don't really know. I've never been a horrible defender. So, I kind of was confused on that, but I definitely have gotten better and want to continue to get better on that defensive end, really be a complete two-way, player. I think that's my calling card, and I'm very happy to accept and embrace that.
Okay, he continues on, but I found that kind of interesting. So he's obviously heard the talk. He has heard people talking about, hey, listen, you got to get better on the defensive end. And if you just listen to the way he mentions it, and I've never been horrible on the defensive end, as if like this is something that has come up obviously a couple of times and is like a talking point. As you said, this is something that clearly he wants to fix and he maybe doesn't agree with. What do you think? Like, do you think that this is he's getting in his feelings a little bit here?
It sounds like maybe he's heard it so much that he's like, all right, okay, how much worse am I than this guy, than this guy, than this guy kind of thing, right? Because like you see him when he's defending, it's like he gets physical into guys, he gets low in his stance, he does like defender type things. It's the off ball issues that are a lot of the problem, the switching a lot of the problem. But I could see him thinking, I guard up, I get physical, I'm defending well.
Rebounding is another thing that he's pretty good at as well.
Yep, exactly, right. So it's like but at the same time, like I just think he's a very professional, and he's taking the criticism and trusting somewhat of the criticism and going, okay, this is what they're telling me I need to do to, maybe it's for my next contract, maybe it's just for my position on the team. This is what I got to work on. Okay, I'm going to try to work on this, right? We saw a lot of clips from him training with his trainer this year, and he was working on mid-range, and I don't think at any point they really told him, you really got to shore up your mid-range to fit on this roster. But it's something that he's lacked in his game for a while, so maybe he sees it as a chance of adding more to his game and making himself a bit more dangerous. Doesn't really fit with the whole you're going to be an off-ball player, but he's going to have moments to create no matter what. Like he's still going to have moments of self-creation. So
Yeah, and I mean, it's never a bad thing if the lane to the basket is closed off and they give you that shot on maybe as Bobby was saying, a closeout attack. Sometimes you can get to that mid-range and pull up. I mean, that was Gary Trent Jr.'s. Like, I preferred him pulling up in that mid-range than trying to go to the rim because he was just not a very good finisher.
yeah.
Okay, so those are two of the things. Those are the first two clips that I had there. The rest of it is pretty good. I'll just give a quick summation. He talks about working with Brandon Ingram and what they learned about each other's game. So Brandon Ingram was very interesting. He said, I didn't know a ton about RJ's game. I thought he was more of a gunner. And he's not selfish. Like he's a playmaker too. And I like that. And Brandon, the thing that RJ Barrett noticed about Brandon Ingram was that he was good going to the basket. Like he said, I've seen like him shoot a million shots. I didn't realize that he was like such a good driver. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but nothing like newsworthy or like salacious or anything that kind of gets people's blood pumping. Now we get to talk about the coach, Darko Rajakovic. I think the guy who probably has the hottest seat in the Toronto Raptors front office. Now that Masai Ujiri is gone, he was the choice of Masai Ujiri. Of course, he was obviously partially the choice of Bobby Webster as well. I'm sure he was part of the decision-making process there. But at the same time, when the old guard leaves and the new guard comes in, sometimes the first person, if things don't go according to plan, that is the person who leaves first. And I personally hope that doesn't happen. I really like Darko Rajakovic, especially on a human level. He seems like an amazing dude. And I do like just watching the offense. I think it's very fun. I think the defense is very cool. And there are a couple of really good sound bites in here because he kind of drills down on what his focus is for this season. So why don't we start with the first clip here. Yeah, okay. Three minutes in.
Who is hot at the moment and who to force feed. Everything goes back to the standard of play that we want.
Sorry, I have it on hyperspeed here. Just far more efficient.
To have and to score. We do that defensive end. We want to be enter. For us, everything starts on defense.
Okay, here we go. So he's answering a question just kind of in terms of what his philosophy is, but I found that the most interesting part here was where it all starts for him, because a lot of people see him as an offensive-minded coach, but he corrects that thought and mentions where it all starts. So
we want to dominate on defensive end, and for us, everything starts on defensive end. We want to dominate on defensive end. We want to be disruptive on defensive end. We want to be able to create a lot of steals and a lot of opportunities for us to run in transition. And when we do that, then it's going to be much easier for us to score. It's going to be much easier to get in offense. And then for players, they just need to embrace all the skill set that their teammates have. And we have quite a bit of talent on this team. And I think those guys accepting that is the first step for us.
Okay, so he says it all starts on the defensive end. And Jakob Poeltl he's a very good interview, as I think all fans realize. He's very thoughtful. He kind of goes into it as well, but I want to get your thoughts on the defense, the Toronto Raptors defense, and kind of like, what do you think of Darko's approach, like the hyper-aggressive style? What's your take on that?
I think we just saw OKC run it very successfully with a lot of that domination, chaos kind of defense. And I don't think the Raptors have all that same kind of personnel of skill to be able to run that to that kind of perfection. But I think I love watching it, right? It's a lot better than a boring safe defense, and I think it is very appropriate for the personnel that they have. They've done a good job of getting athletic guys, long guys, and guys with like strong disruptive hands like Scotty, CMB, Jacoby. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the personnel, and I think it's also how you not hide worse defenders, but it gives set offenses less time against a player that you're maybe trying to hide a bit. So I think it could work very well into the favor of some of the worser defenders on the Raptors that they're not at the level of the really good players. So it'd be a good way to kind of hide them in that chaos.
Yeah, and a lot of guys, what you're saying makes sense, and a lot of the guys who are maybe not as good one-on-one defenders, and generally when people think about defense, they think one-on-one defense. Like, can you guard your man? Are you going to be able to stay in front of a guy? There's also team defense, and team defense is being able to read plays as they develop, and then putting yourself in a position where you can intercept a pass, where you can smartly double. Like, a lot of the time, you can, if they toss it in, you can come in and trap a player when they're not expecting it. Those are the kind of things that players who aren't as good one-on-one defense can do in an aggressive scheme like this. Is you have to be on a string. And that's kind of what everybody is talking about when they talk about the defense, they're talking about the coordination between the players and learning the system and learning to help the helper and learning to, like, when you are really trying to put pressure on other players, you have to help people who are aggressive, because a lot of the time they can put themselves out of position. And obviously you speed up the other team. And what he was saying is, like, we want to get a lot of steals. Okay. And this kind of goes back to what they did a lot last season, which was run. They were one of the top teams in terms of the number of transition possessions that they got. And I think that is a function of how aggressive they are on defense. And I think we're going to continue to see that this season. So we're going to really see the team amp up the defense and really try and get into guys, especially that second unit. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it reminds me, at least the way they played in Summer League, it reminds me a bit of the way that the Houston Cougars defense was playing in, like, Jamal. Like, they'll probably still run it, but in the tape I was watching of Jamal Shed when we drafted him, they play very high, the forcing, like, violations, all that stuff. They play very, very high, and they're trying to force you to make a really bad pass early, where you have to kind of airmail the pass a little bit, and then everybody else is ready to jump the lanes. I think that just really works for the personnel of the Raptors, and then just turning and getting on the transition break. Like, that's how a lot of these guys like CMB, like Jacoby, like Shed are going to be getting a lot of their points just off of forcing those steals and breaks.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things is that it's a bit of a trade some of the time, especially when you play that hyper aggressive defense, is that you're trading field goal percentage, which is generally how people think a defense functions, is that, the other team's shot doesn't go in as often. What you're doing is you're giving up some, it's not always the case, because sometimes you can force a team to take a bad shot because you're being so aggressive. But a lot of the time when a defense is very aggressive, it can break down completely, and then the other team gets a layup or an open three because there's been too many rotations, there's too much help. So that can happen. But a lot of the time you can make up for that just by gaining more possessions because of the turnovers that the other team has. So I do like that style. I think that it fits the young team with fresh legs. I think all the guys on the team, what I like about them, especially the second unit guys, is that they've gone out and found guys with really good motors who are willing to put in the effort and listen to the coach and go out and do that stuff. Because you've heard all of the stories of the guys on different teams who are not willing to put in the effort, not willing to, like, really challenge themselves and go out there and compete. I don't think that's a problem with this team. So I just wanted to mention that. Oh yeah. And there was a guy whose name came up multiple times in this press conference, and it kind of surprised me because I've been setting my expectations pretty low, but sort of apropos of nothing, like Darko just brought up Sandro Mamukelash, just all by himself. So it was a question that was asked about the number of forwards on the team in years past, and now we're going back to that with Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl, etc. Like, how are they going to do that? And he brought up an interesting name. So.
He is going to be having,
I guess, big forwards going forward this season.
yes, for sure. I think one thing that's going to really help us this year is going to be having Sandro on the team. He's going to be playing backup 5 for us, but also he's a player who can stretch the floor. So it's really going to allow us, especially with the second unit, to go to different schemes, to look for different guys in pick and rolls and DHOs, to use him spacing the floor, to use him to pick and pop. So I think that's going to be a big difference for us this year, having that type of player that can really help us to connect that group.
So wow, high praise, very high praise from Darko. Like he wasn't even mentioned in the question, but he went out of his way to go and say, like, Sandro is going to be a big part of our plans. He's playing backup 5, which is what I expected him to play, the backup 5. But what are your thoughts on that? Should we readjust our expectations?
I mean, I think he just makes a lot of sense as a guy that Darko would like. He's very good at playing that kind of 0.5 offense. He's a good passer. He's active, can stretch the floor. So it makes sense that he'd be a guy that Darko really liked. I think he also had very high praise for Dennis Schroeder. Like I think he was pretty crazy over him because he's a player who plays excellent in Euroball and everything like that, right? So
yeah,
I think maybe for that reason, I've got a bit of a reserve on that, where I'm going, okay, maybe
take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, like maybe he's just sweet on everyone, but at least there's that we get that, okay, so he's going to be playing backup 5, and we know that they're going to try him out, and we know that they're going to really give it a go, and it'll make for some pretty interesting bench lineups. So that's at least interesting. Like, it's like, okay, he wasn't just signed to be not played, but it will be interesting to see how he fits into that. And I hope that Darko's praise is legit and that it's deserved, right? And we get to see this player. I mean, I don't know if he said it today or whoever said it, but that Sandro hasn't gotten the chance to have consistency in the league, and that
that's the other clip that I had here. Why don't we jump to that, and then we can discuss it a little further, because I was surprised his name came up twice. But this one, the guy asked a question about Sandro, so this is what Darko had to say about him in that regard.
Well, Jamal Shed is a great singer. He's the one leading happy birthday songs. He's not afraid to do something like that.
Thanks, and then we'll finish with Gilbert, who's just here last one.
Good to see you, Coach. Sandro was having quite a time in Europe playing for Georgia over the summer. I wonder how you intend to use him and Yak, maybe Chomche as well, to improve that center position.
Signing Sandro was very important for us this off-season, because we see in him somebody who shares the values of our organization, and we see in him somebody who can really compete on a higher level. I believe that he's going to get the right opportunity, the right chance, that kind of like was not consistent with him in his first couple of years in NBA. And I believe that he's ready to make that next jump. Just watching him playing Eurobasket, I think he did a really good job. He played out of his natural position. He played more position 3. But that's the great thing about Sandro. He can play any position 3 to 5, but also can bring the ball up the floor. I think he's going to give us a lot, and he's really excited to be here in Toronto, and I'm sure talking to him, you guys will get a chance to sense that as well.
Wow. So yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. He basically said, like, this guy didn't get a fair shake in San Antonio. He's got more to give, and really went on to just kind of, give him all the props. Wow, man, should we, this is getting me kind of excited. So Darko better hope that Sandro pops off, or we're gonna, have this soundbite waiting, to punish him for it.
No, I mean, it sounds like Sandro's right character-wise to fit the organization. And I mean, the Raptors want and have to find these good players on the margin and find players that are second draft guys or other teams have given up on or didn't get a consistent chance before, and see if they can hit, because they're playing under, like, the Raptors have such kind of limited ways of building their team. And I mean, even tanking for a couple years didn't get them too low of a pick. So you have to find these ways that are just on the margins of, okay, nobody's given this guy a shot, maybe we'll be the team to give him a shot. It's kind of what they've liked to do for a long time, where they go, okay, second draft guy, what does Joshua Jackson look like? Okay, he doesn't fit. That's fine. Like, they're low risk chances, right? So I mean, I love it in principle, and I mean, yeah, he's gassing him up, and if he doesn't reach it again, it's like a minimum signing, and it's low risk, right? I think you have to remember that.
It's low risk except for his reputation. Like, God, he's gonna be. I'll never trust him again.
Yeah,
he'll be the next signing that they have. He'll be, gassing the guy up, and I'll be like, okay, I heard what you said about Sandro, but no, I think he has a chance to do good things here. So I'm excited that that's what he had to say. There's one last thing in this press conference that I found kind of interesting, and it's about being in elite shape. So why don't I let him explain what he wants the team, like the conditioning of the team.
Everybody's looking for two-way players. Everybody wants guys that can play on both ends of the floor, and the only way you can do that if you're in elite shape.
Hold on. Sorry. I forgot to switch the scene. Here we go. There we go. Now you can hear him, or see him, excuse me.
And talking to players individually as a group, we set up a really good plan for guys to achieve that goal. Everybody's looking for two-way players. Everybody wants guys that can play on both ends of the floor, and the only way you can do that if you're in elite shape. So that was goal number one for us to improve in that. We did a lot of projects trying to see how we can improve our hand activity, how we can be more aggressive on the ball. Like, everything that we're trying to do is we're just trying to speed up teams, and we're really trying to make teams uncomfortable as it's possible. So we did some exciting projects and some adjustments in the individual training that I'm looking forward to implement now in a training camp as well. So I'm hopeful that it's going to really help us and our defense to take another level.
Oh, I like hearing that. I like hearing the Eastern European accent and him saying special projects. It makes me think, like, yes, this guy's got some kind of like secret sauce that he is just, ready to unleash on the unsuspecting teams in the Eastern Conference. Yeah, so there were two things there. The first one is just he thinks that if you want to be a two-way player, you got to be in elite shape. So that was one of the focuses in the offseason, get these guys into, like, whip them into shape. And the second one is these special projects with hands, using these hand drills so that they can be even more aggressive on the ball. What do you make of that?
It sounds like they're making use of all the technology that they kind of have at hand. Like, they're probably doing those reaction tests. They're probably doing like where they've got that big LED wall. They're probably doing all those kinds of stuff. And because they're shown that the organization that likes to use that with the Noah board, with all that. So I feel like maybe those are what the special projects are. He used the word projects when he was talking about his summer a lot and what he would plan with the coaches and stuff. So I think that's interesting. It sounds like they're very united in how they're game planning for each player. And I mean, I wish we could get some kind of behind the footage of those special projects, because that sounds awesome. But and I totally agree with you have to be in elite shape to be at least the team that they want to be, right? There's it's high motion on offense, high motion on defense, and like Nick Nurse ran that pressure defense as well, right? And you would see what would happen when the bench players who were not as elite athletes and not as just gifted at right, they couldn't run it, and you'd have all these big issues where it was giving up corner three because they just you didn't have Pascal Siakam closing it out to that corner. You had Juancho or somebody, right? Like, so I think.
And on the flip side, if you ran your starters too long, which he did, he rode the starters, they'd get tired, they get exhausted doing all the work that you're describing. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
You see these like winning players like Josh Hart, Kyle Bridges, who are guys who are just really athletic and just never have to stop. If you wanted to ask them to play 48 minutes, they could. And I think that's just like probably every coach's dream, to have a team that is so ridiculously fit. Like when I was growing up, my lacrosse coach basically just had us run for more than half the practices because he was like, there will be players that will be more talented than us, but they will not beat us because they won't be in as good a shape of us, because you can just run them into the ground.
Yeah.
I like that as a direction of where this team should go, when you only have a few players who are really like high skill guys, you know?
Exactly. And for a younger team like the Toronto Raptors, and hopefully a deep team, like, I mean, your prediction, I think it was 2 weeks ago, you said like that they're going to win their minutes this year. The bench, you know, if you can run, you know, 10 deep, 9 deep, and you have these guys coming on ready to give 110% and just really run the other team ragged, that would be amazing. That would just be so fun to watch. And you see it a lot in other sports like soccer, like where you don't get timeouts, you don't get these like breaks. And so one of the biggest things that you need to drill into people is the fitness and the ability to run and move for a very like a sustained period of time on both ends of the floor. So I think that's really interesting, and I love hearing him say the special projects. I love it. Maybe I'll clip that, put it on a soundboard or something.
That's perfect.
Okay, so we're going to move on. We've spent quite a bit of time. I think we're only about halfway through here, so we'll speed up the process a little bit. We'll go to Scotty Barnes really quickly because he mentioned some of the work that he's done. But it wasn't the most entertaining interview or like insightful interview. There's a lot of the stuff like we know Scotty Barnes and what he's up to, what he wants to do. And there's one tidbit of information here when it comes to his health. And as we know, his shooting last season was not good. And he mentions kind of why here. I mean, we knew this, but it's an update on how his hand is doing. So let's listen in.
You know, I think with that hand injury, it was my pinky.
Okay, we got to go. Apologies again. These hyperspeed clips. I don't know. Let's go.
How are you feeling about your jump shot in general, your three-point shot coming into this season?
I think my shot feels pretty good. You know, I think with that hand injury, it was my pinky. It was both pinkies actually. I needed some time off. I took a couple weeks off to just let it just rest, and then got back on the court and it just felt so much better. Sometimes it, you know, a little bit doesn't bother me nearly as much as last year, but you know, it feels a lot better where I'm able to, you know, shoot the right way. The ball feels great in my hands, and you know, everything feels great.
So one thing that I noted there is that it seems like he kind of said something and then pulled it back. So he said, "It doesn't hurt me as much as it did last season," indicating that it's still there, that there's still some kind of lingering thing with his finger. And then he immediately said, like, it's great. So maybe I'm reading too far into it, but it sounded like, maybe he still has a couple of issues with his hand there. But that was one thing that I clipped there. And now we're going to get to something kind of juicy here. There's been some controversy regarding one of the Toronto Raptors' newest acquisitions, Brandon Ingram. He did a press conference and he said something that has kind of stirred up some emotions south of the border in New Orleans. And why don't we get to that and just kind of hear what he has to say, and then we'll discuss the fallout from that. So let me just find it, 5:30, and then I'll make sure that we're on normal. So
you've learned about Toronto or been in Toronto, Just wanted to know what was
Sorry, one sec.
Toronto. Just wanted to know what was the most surprising thing you've learned about Toronto, or some of your favorite moments you've had already.
The most impressive thing for me is seeing every seat in the arena filled up, every single game, no matter winning or losing. Just seeing everybody there, that's definitely different from New Orleans. Having every seat filled and everybody showing love, whether we're down or up. That was very consistent.
Ooh, drama. Also, first of all, like, look at the lighting here. Like,
I love
it looks
it.
like he's in a like they're interviewing him. He's like in a dungeon or something.
Yeah, or like if there was like smoke in the background, it's like a film noir kind of thing. It's
Yeah, exactly.
hilarious.
Yeah, that's so funny. Like, it's like, can you just get some, like, put up a screen or something so that it's not like that. But yeah, wow. Okay, so he kind of goes at his former franchise, the New Orleans Pelicans. And the fans too, kind of saying, like, not only was the building not full when we were, losing games, they also, he went out of his way to say, like, the Toronto Raptors would show love even when the team is down, indicating, maybe he didn't get that there. And so, yeah, we're going to look at some of the reactions. I got one here where this guy is very salty. He is not happy. Let me just get this here. So let's hear what he has to say. Brandon Ingram was the main focal point in the AD trade. 2-8 postseason record, 0 playoff series wins, 152 games missed, quit on team in play-in game versus Lakers, asked not to do post-game pressers. Say what you want about the fans. You were a failure in New Orleans. Whoa.
Yeah, this guy spent all day on this pro Pels talk guy. He was all over this. You know what? I get if you're being a bit salty, but I've seen the videos. Their arena is fairly empty. And I'm not saying that you should continue going if the players aren't playing and stuff, sure, but it's like if he's just speaking facts, right?
Absolutely. I mean, he's on my team. I'm going to back the guy up. Hell yeah. Brandon Ingram. Toronto Raptors fans are the best. Talk your talk. And this guy, like, okay, I would be salty too. I would be salty. I would be saying stuff. But the guy, it sounds emotional. Like, it's like he is, like, it's touched him and he's sad and he's lashing out in a very... like, you went point by point talking about all of the bad things. I probably would have just made it a bit more concise, just maybe, one line, maybe with an expletive or something. But
this same fan is now counting on Zion to be healthy for more than 30 games a year. So he's still stuck in this nightmare that he is creating the image of BI. So he's still stuck in that himself, right? So
yeah, exactly. All of that applies to Zion. Like, it's the problem with the two of them was that they were both injury prone, and both of them played in this on the same team and lost in the playoffs and didn't do very well, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, you're kind of setting yourself up here.
And he's not the first former Pels player to kind of speak out against the certain parts of the organization. Like Dyson Daniels said his piece, Lonzo Ball said his piece before. Like
DeJounte Murray,
exactly right. And he's still a Pel.
Yeah, well, he's said, yeah, there's a bunch of guys who have come out and said, like, listen, this isn't the top franchise in the league. And so I feel for them as fans. That's not the fans' fault that the organization is kind of crummy and kind of saying, like, you're not supporting us here. I get it. It's not a good look to, throw the match over your shoulder and burn the bridge as you leave, but I get it from Brandon Ingram's perspective. He left a place where I guess he just wasn't feeling it. And I don't think he felt the love. And hopefully things are different here. I think that, this team has a chance to do some damage and is,
As Infamous says in chat here too, Bruce Brown's statements today were a bit more controversial if we're gonna be on the side of that. I don't know if you have those.
No, is he talking?
So he said, it's not going to be exact, but he said basically like, oh yeah, like those are a couple of rough years, lots of losing basketball. And he said basically the second he got here or whatever, he was just trying to figure out how to get back to Denver and like just that kind of thing of,
okay, I got it here.
Oh, I really have to get back to Denver and all this, right? And
sick. Okay.
I
as
think
soon as I got to Toronto, I thought about coming back to Denver right away. Bruce Brown. Listen, Bruce Brown is funny. Okay.
Yeah.
And Bruce Brown, I will remember fondly in terms of his facial reactions to things.
Yeah.
The way he dressed is hilarious.
Yeah.
Just very funny. And the duplicity, like the guy, do you recall when during the season, when he still played for the Toronto Raptors, he went out and said, I will do whatever Coach Thibodeau wants me to. He was still playing for the Raptors. He was like saying like the team that he wanted to get traded to, New York, he's going to do anything. It's like, bro, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not too salty. And second of all, he played like, I was pissed with him. I was so mad when he missed the beginning of the season in training camp and came in injured. That made me upset. But I will give him credit. He could have gone out on my, S list if he, sucked the whole season and the Raptors couldn't get anything for him. To his credit, he went out there and improved his trade value enough to the point where he showed that he was healthy enough that the Raptors could get a return for him. And
exactly. I got no ill will to him. I think it's just kind of funny, the situation. And even like, I don't even remember that quote, but Jokic basically razzed him being like, yeah, he really wanted to come back, like basically like save his career, stuff like that. It's like, if he's been referred to as a Jokic merchant, as so many of the Joker's former teammates, it's like, okay, this isn't working so well for me. I got to get back with Joker to save my career.
Yeah, no doubt. Best passing big man ever. I think it's pretty consensus at this point. If you're a guard, it's kind of a dream come true to play with that guy. So, I get it from that point. And the team was losing. If the Toronto Raptors were winning games, he probably wouldn't be begging to leave, but who knows? I'm not going to get too bent out of shape. See, that's how you take it. If you're that guy from the Pelicans who's whining about Brandon Ingram, dissing the fans or whatever, that's how you take it. You take it with grace. Okay. You just accept it and move on. Okay. So now we save the best for last because, as we all know, Jakob Poeltl, the best interview on the Toronto Raptors, and his mixture of like trying to answer not only the question that's being asked, but the theme of the question. And then combined with the Germanic, I know he's Austrian, but like Germanic honesty.
Yeah, just the matter of factness.
Exactly. Remember last season, he was like shocked people because they came out and said, what are the expectations for the season? He's like, well, we're not going to make the playoffs. So it's not really that. It's going to be a building year, which is, nobody ever says that. And that was a great moment. But as we all know, like we've listened to Jakob Poeltl many times, he will go out of his way to try and answer your question as thoroughly as possible and give insight on why something is the way it is. So I mined his this press conference for some good quotes. There are a ton. There's more than I actually did. So if you want to just search it up, it'll be on the first result on YouTube. But I've got a couple of timestamps here. Why don't we go to the first one? So one of the more interesting things that he talks about here is Brandon Ingram and what he brings to the team and what he expects from Brandon Ingram this season. So let me find that.
And like also defensive-minded basketball. So I think that's really cool to see. Seems to like really enjoy himself here. 3-level threat.
Okay, my timestamps are all screwed up here. Apologies.
It's all
Like
good.
you could just get him the ball in almost any individual skill as a scorer.
So you got a good
Here we
look at
go.
Brandon. What do you think he's going to bring to the team, and how do you think like he'll complement your game, you'll complement his game?
I mean, just like his individual skill as a scorer, I think is like obviously like the biggest thing that he brings us, like a true 3-level threat. Like you just get him the ball in almost any position and like he'll make something good happen for you. I think that's what he really brings. But for a guy like that, what's unique about him is how much he's buying into our team style of basketball and like also defensive minded basketball. So I think that's really cool to see. Seems to like really enjoy himself here so far. And yeah, I know we've had limited time together, like limited practice.
Okay, so he continues to go on like that. But what I liked hearing about was kind of the buy-in. And that was one of the concerns. The reason I clipped this is because there was a concern heading into this season that the style of basketball that Brandon Ingram wanted to play did not match what the Toronto Raptors were trying to do. So number one, the Toronto Raptors, obviously ball movement offense, motion offense. They want to be able to read and react, pass the ball around. He is more of like a guy who wants to cook, get the ball in his spots, and make something happen. So for Yak, who is obviously honest guy, saying that there is a level of buy-in there, not only on the offensive end, but on the defensive end as well. So what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear. I think, like, I remember it was the beginning of last year, maybe the year before, but Darko's 0.5 offense, and like there was kind of a misconception that the action had to happen in 0.5 seconds, whether it was a shot or a pass or whatever. It's really the decision that has to happen in that time. So I think there's still kind of a middle ground for Brandon where it's like he's bought into the ball movement and all that, but he can still decide, okay, I touched the ball, I'm attacking, I'm getting into my spot to score now. Like, I don't think it's going to be 18 dribbles ball hogging. It's going to be, 1-2 dribble pull up, but he's still going to be able to have those kind of small ISO situations. And I think he gets to, they've mentioned multiple times that he loves to pass. So he gets to exercise that. And he said in his thing, he likes to table set when he can. So I just think, yeah, it's kind of seems like it's going to satisfy everything that he does want.
Yep, absolutely. And there's more Brandon Ingram stuff here. So I clipped another segment where he specifically talks about the defensive impact that Brandon Ingram can have on the Toronto Raptors.
What your early impressions are of Brandon Ingram as a defender and what key elements you think he's going to add on that side of the ball?
Like I said, it's tough to say from a short or like a small sample size. I think what's really impressed me is, like I said, how much he's bought into it. For a guy that's maybe traditionally not somebody that's been asked to guard a lot of guys, maybe just like ask more of a spot-up shooter, guard more of a spot-up shooter out there or anything. Like he's really dialed into like our pressing, like being aggressive style of play. And I think his greatest skill on defense is honestly like he's good at anticipating where the ball is going and like using his length and stuff to be disruptive. I don't know if that's something he's done a lot in his career, but I think he actually has like the natural build and like instincts for it. So if he can tap into that, like, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it goes against other teams, because I don't know, we're almost so used to it by now by having that pressure put on us. It'll be cool to see how other teams react to that.
Okay, so there you go. I mean, like he kind of like bringing it back to what you were talking about, where the aggression and pairing that with a person who isn't necessarily like an excellent one-on-one defender. Yak kind of talks about the strengths that he has as a defender, which is the anticipation, like team defense, and his length and size, being able to utilize that in a way that maybe can lead to a turnover, like, like being a ball hawk, essentially, waiting for a pass to be made and then anticipating where it's going to go and either getting a deflection or a steal. So that was kind of cool to hear. With that said, there was like a bit of damning with faint praise there, where he said essentially like, this is a guy that maybe wasn't asked to be a good defender, be a defender at all, really. He was kind of out there guarding spot up shooters who are, the easiest player to guard because they generally don't move around the floor very often. You can kind of cheat off of them. You can stand still. You can preserve your energy. So it was kind of interesting to hear both sides of that. What do you think about Brandon Ingram? Is he going to be a star defender for the Toronto Raptors?
I think the whole defensive buy-in, it's infectious when you've got players next to you that are giving it their all on defense and talking and all that. Like if as they're saying that Scotty is going to be the head of this defense and really lean into that, I think that alone is just going to be so inspiring to the players around him of I have to meet this guy at his level of defense because we're all trying to win the game here. Brandon's not a lazy guy. RJ's not a lazy guy. These aren't lazy players in the sense, but I would agree that it seems like Brandon was always kind of given a bit more of a break on that end of, how a lot of those kind of lead. Brandon's not exactly heliocentric compared to somebody like Luka is and stuff like that, but it's like those guys get to take breaks on defense because, you're trying to keep them as fresh as possible and everything. But it sounds like they're trying to have nobody have a chance to be a break there and to try to make that the chaos time. So it'd be interesting to see how Ingram's fitness and all that goes along with it, how he's able to keep up with that, and if that impacts his offense at all, if he is putting out a higher amount of energy than he typically would. So that'll be interesting to kind of see. But it's really cool to hear that he's actually really bought into that. And it's like, he doesn't have this kind of ego. Like it's what he's said that he loves about this team is like nobody has a big ego and all that stuff. But he seems to be the same way, that he doesn't think, oh, I'm the scorer, I shouldn't have to defend. No, it seems like he wants to be just as much of a two-way player as other players.
Right. And I get the sense that he's a similar, like obviously people compare him to Kevin Durant because of the way that he's tall, he can shoot the jumper very smooth, can create his own shot and all that kind of stuff. But then there's the other aspect to it that kind of reminds me of Kevin Durant, is that he's kind of like married to the game in a way.
Exactly.
In a way that like he is a guy who is thinking about basketball first and foremost, whereas some other guys who maybe fit the superstar category are thinking about the other benefits that go along with it, or like, and that's not to say they can't be good players or anything like that. It's just that if it's a mindset where your goal is to win basketball games and your goal is to play a style of basketball that's fun and engaging, a lot of the time that requires effort on your part. You can't just be the guy who tags along and does the thing that you're supposed to do, but not anything else. And I totally get what you're saying about like how if everybody's down, then it's hard to kind of stick out. You got to be with the group as well. So hopefully that's the way it translates. Hopefully, maybe if he's not like a superstar defender, I'm hoping that he can help them play the style that they want to play, which is a disruptive defensive scheme. Okay, so here's the biggest clip that I have here. And it goes back to the first press conference that we listened to. So if you'll recall, kind of one of the things that I criticized Bobby Webster for was not being as bold in his take on his expectations for the team. And I think Jakob Poeltl kind of puts that a lie to that, in that this is the sanitized version that Bobby Webster gave out, i.e. we won 30 games last year, we're not pegging a blah, 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 blah. Yak kind of tells you what people are saying within the organization with his answer about his expectations for the season. So let's listen to that. Let me quickly put it over.
Expectations for the season.
I think there's been a very clear line for us to just attack this season and try to get back into a winning position. Like we've talked about this like development plan, and we knew it was going to be some down phases, but we also knew that we didn't want to be stuck in like a rebuilding phase for a long time. We wanted to do what's necessary, but then be a winning team again as soon as possible. And I think like the communication between us players and also with like coaches and front office has been very clear that everybody seems to be dialed in on like we want to win this now. So yeah, for us to be a winning team, we got to get back to the playoffs. I think that's like the obvious first step. We got to have one of those young team breakout years where we might surprise some other teams. And I think we have it in us, but we just got to show it on the court.
So really enlightening comment here. And this is why I obviously like listening to this, because when you hear his answer, he's not just giving his own impression of what he thinks the goals are for the season. He specifically goes out of his way to say like coaching staff, front office, there was the losing time, that's over. We're gonna try and win. Our goal is to make the playoffs. Everybody in the organization is saying this is the year that we're gonna make a push and try and get to the playoffs. So perfect. And this is coming from a guy who it is not expected for him to say something like this. As we watched last season, he literally said, the goal for this season isn't to make the playoffs. It is to develop. So he is, you can tell that you can trust what he's saying to be true. So when Bobby Webster goes out in front of the cameras and gives this kind of watered down version where he's saying, listen, we won 30 games last season and we're going to kind of evaluate as the season goes on. And I want to be able to see whether they can do this and that. That's for the cameras, right? If Jakob Poeltl's coming out here and saying from the top to the bottom, coaching staff, front office, we're on the same page. This is the go phase. Like we are going, there's not going to be a ton of, loose ends here. We're going to try and make the playoffs. So that's very interesting to me. Am I wrong here, or is that what you're getting from this?
No, totally. And what it sounds like is that there's been very clear communication between Yak and the front office for all these years. And it does sound like that this is kind of their half of the front office's half of the bargain of getting him to buy in to the rebuild. Because I don't remember the exact quotes from the early on, but he was basically like, yeah, I know this is not, this is going in a rebuild direction and I'm kind of committed to that, seeing that process through. Right. And I don't know if there was the option of, hey, do you want us to try to trade you out of here, or do you want to stick in and be part of this rebuild process? Because the way he phrases it, it sounds like he's been talking with them and that this has been the plan. Okay, we'll get back to competing in a year from now, for 2 years from now, we'll get some pieces around. It sounds like the kind of plans that teams make with their star players, where they're like, okay, Giannis, don't worry, we'll add this to you, but they're just, it sounds like they might have done it with Yak to get him to buy in, which is totally cool. And I think, yeah, you're right, Bobby is kind of couching it, and maybe that's just so they surprise more teams or cover his own ass. I don't know, but yeah, I definitely take Yak as the more significant source here.
Yeah, that's what I think. And there's one more clip here, and then we'll talk about. There's some other things that I want to get to about the show that are pretty interesting, so stick around for that. But there's one more part of this interview that I thought was pretty interesting, where he talks about his role in the offense, and now that Brandon Ingram is on the team. So, which it's kind of funny, they're talking to Jakob Poeltl about Brandon Ingram, multiple questions just about Brandon Ingram, and just look at the still can't get over the lighting here.
I feel like too, you remember how when Ingram got added that he was like, I'm really excited to play with Yak. Yes. It was that was one of the main things. So I feel like the media has latched that, being like, okay, so what is it here that they've got going? And it's I mean, I didn't expect it when Ingram said that, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Another thing is that I think that the media is excited about Brandon Ingram,
Mm-hmm.
and they know that Jakob Poeltl is like, he will give you a lot of insight, and he will give you sound bites about a player that maybe another person on the team wouldn't.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, well, here's a topic that's kind of interesting, and here's a good guy who is going to give a good answer. Let's ask him about the interesting thing, and he'll give us the good answer, and we can get the soundbite and put it into our article or on TV or whatever.
Which I feel like they used to do a lot with Fred and like rookie, sophomore Scotty.
Exactly.
They used to ask Fred about Scotty a lot. And I think maybe I eventually got on his nerves a little bit the way that they brought it up a lot. But yeah, they go for the guy who's a good quote to get more out of than you would from that guy.
Well, yeah, exactly. Or Lowry. Lowry was always like that because he would give you something pithy and funny and insightful and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Much better to write on, yeah.
Let me see if I've got the right timestamp here.
Particularly a guy like Brandon who likes to operate. I don't think our
in the league and elbow touches, you're obviously a big part of that. You did it in San Antonio, you did it here.
Okay, let me just pause this. The problem with they want to use natural lighting here. They have it in I think it's the atrium there in the Scotiabank Center.
Trying to use natural lighting over a 6-7 hour window.
Yeah,
expecting it to change.
Look at this. Okay, here's the first, like, there's like 5 different exposures here, and now he's like sitting in a dungeon. He's like, yeah, this is just embarrassing. I can't believe that this is the state of.
They got the mics to work, but they had to mess this part up.
Do you remember, like, a couple of seasons ago, maybe it was last season, they had a banner that they put on the front of the table that had a Raptors logo on it, and it was all like wrinkled and like it was clear that they just folded it up and opened it up. There was no ironing. Come on, guys. We're a first-class
multi-billion-dollar
organization.
company here.
Exactly.
That you did it in San Antonio, you did it here. Obviously with Scotty and Brandon, you're probably going to be placed elsewhere at some points in time. How do you feel about going into this season and kind of occupying a different space than you have in different seasons?
Yeah, I'm curious, honestly, like how all that's gonna pan out. Like, I don't think our spacing is gonna change that much in our offense in general. Like, obviously, there's gonna be sets where I find myself in different positions, and maybe particularly a guy like Brandon who likes to operate in like mid-range elbow area. Like, we're gonna try to get him the ball there a bunch of times, but really when I get the ball in the elbow area, it's probably a different style of play, like more of a like connecting mindset, whereas Brandon, like, we're trying to get him isolation situations. So yeah, I'm gonna try to continue to improve on that. But what was the second part?
How do you feel about, like, you might be in the dunker spot more often, you might be more of a finisher rather than setting screens and catching at the elbow. Like, how do you feel about that aspect of your game?
I mean, that's fine, honestly. Like, me being in the elbow area was like an adjustment that team needed at the time, and what that could kind of made sense for the team's purpose. And I've played in pick and roll situations, I've played in dunkers, I've played from like top of the key as a connector, like there's so many different situations. I don't think like where you put me is really like that big a difference maker. It's just how I can find my impact there. And yeah, I think being in a dunker spot is a fairly natural position for me, so I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Okay, so the question there essentially is, what do you think about, like, Brandon Ingram? A lot was made about him joining the Toronto Raptors and where he's going to fit in the offense. Clearly, Jakob Poeltl was one of the better players for the Toronto Raptors last season. And the question was essentially, now that Brandon Ingram is going to be at the elbow a lot more often, is that going to interfere with your game? And how do you feel about being in the dunker spot? And he does not seem to be too concerned. In my opinion, like, I don't know if they occupy the same spot. Like, I know he's been in the elbow and they run some actions for him there, but I recall that, like, a lot of the time he would be catching the ball at the 3-point arc, like at the top of the arc, and sort of making a decision from that point. So I am also interested in seeing how they're going to use Poeltl this season. do you think that like I don't see him as much of a natural dunker spot guy, and I think that that's kind of limiting what he does, because he's not an incredible dunking finisher, in that you can't throw him a traditional lob like you would to a normal dunker spot center, because he's not as like vertically athletic.
It takes him a second to get off the floor compared to like some of the other springier guys, right? For sure. Like he's got to load up longer to get up there in the first place. And yeah, it's not his, I mean, it's not even his go-to shot. Like he prefers the floater. He prefers to kind of,
Yeah,
you know,
layups. Like a lot of the time, he'll catch the ball and like do a one dribble, into a layup.
Yeah.
So I think that is like it will be interesting to see how he adjusts to the offense, and I think that like his usage is going to be scaled down, but I would still like to see him get the ball. Like I want to see him maybe not take the shot, but be able to handle and hold the ball and make connective passes. So I'm also kind of interested.
I think Darko still likes to, run a big out of the elbow as a connective passer. Like I still think he's gonna like to do that. So I think those options will still be there, even though Yak says that was kind of an adjustment to get him out there in the first place to cover for lack of having that. But like I see Darko doing that with CMB and Mamu in the same way, of having them get those touches at the elbow to kind of create and then hit the weak side with a pass. Like I think those options will still be there for Yak, but yeah, as he's not a shooter, as Scotty's not a, but Scotty will probably be having more catch and shoot opportunities this year where he's popping out to corners and stuff like that. And maybe that's how you compensate for having both of them there, while that gets a bit more crowded, having Brandon in the elbow too. But I mean, it sounds like he's willing to adjust, and yeah, his usage will probably scale down a little bit. Maybe his points will scale down a little bit, but maybe that means more rebounds. Maybe that means more,
Yeah, catch being able to catch and finish. Yeah, absolutely. Where he plays off of the ball and isn't as much of a playmaker, for sure.
Because he's got good hands on the inside and stuff too, right? Like he's always able to get those little shovel passes and those little wraparounds and stuff. So I think like as a non-vertical, threat finisher, he's still very good at finishing at the rim, and he's good at kind of taking some contact to do that. So I don't think that that'll be too big of a thing for him to adjust to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so there were a whole bunch, like, I watched, like, I don't know, 5 hours of the media day stuff. Tried to pick out the best clips and kind of explore what's going on, read between the lines, give you guys some insight into the team. And hopefully we were able to do that today. I think that this was a pretty good episode. I like having real things to talk about, like actual news stories, actual quotes, actual things, instead of having to go back to the well and think up, different scenarios and all of that kind of stuff. That's fun, but, it was getting a little tiresome. It's always darkest before dawn, right?
That's right.
You run out of material, and now we're kind of getting bombarded with it. But here's the interesting stuff that I wanted to talk about with this channel. So, as you all know, this is either the 11th or 12th episode of the podcast. We're going to start doing some stuff with the show and expanding our reach and allowing people who are members of, fans of ours to be part of a community. And one of the things that I did recently was I set up a brand new Discord channel. And this has a couple of options. The first of which is just the free area where anybody can join and, ask us questions, post about the Toronto Raptors, other teams, the NBA, etc. And then obviously a member section as well. And we have a Patreon. It is in the link tree in the description of this video if you want to become a member. And one of the member benefits that is going to be happening is that you will get we will be creating a members only, there will be obviously a free podcast and then a members only podcast. Many other shows do this. I think it's a good way of incentivizing people to become a member. And another thing is that you will get access to the members only part of the Discord. And in those, one of the things that we can do is you can ask us questions that we will respond to and bring up during the podcast in the member section. So very exciting. We're getting this off of the ground. This is one of the first episodes where people are starting to clue back into the Toronto Raptors. A lot of you, I mean, the hardcore fans, the people who are like, really down for the Toronto Raptors have been paying attention the whole summer. So don't want to ignore you guys. But for the people who are, seasonal fans, nothing wrong with that. Everybody has their interests, and the Toronto Raptors are starting to pick up. Interest is starting to pick up. And if you want to become part of the community, I'm going to leave a link in the description. I'll adjust that after this wraps up. You can take a look, join the Discord. Even if you don't become a member, join the Discord anyway. We're going to be starting up a community there where you guys can ask us questions and talk to one another and all of that kind of good stuff. Just wanted to mention that. Steve, do you have anything to say before we head out?
No, thanks everybody for hanging out and watching with us. We get the first couple preseason games happening, what is it, a week from now or less, as they head out to Calgary. So that should be exciting to talk about in the next episode. And just thanks everybody for hanging out.
Yeah, let's go Raptors. I am so pumped, as probably all of you are. Can't wait to get the season started. And this was, this is a new step for Raptors Report. Thanks for joining us.